Well, hello, and welcome to the podcast. We're going to go live in just a minute on Facebook. But before we do, if you haven't been to the Facebook live feed, it's actually a lot of fun. You can find me on my own personal Facebook page. It's Talk to Rusty, talk the number 2 Rusty, or type in my name, Rusty Humphries, and there's like a bunch of them. Look for me in a blue shirt, and that's the best way to find me. And like the page, and then go there 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West, Monday through Friday, unless something better comes along. But it's a lot of fun, and I really appreciate it. Also, if you'd please tell your friends about this great podcast, and if you haven't subscribed at iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio, please do it. Leave a nice comment. It does make a difference. This portion of the Rusty Humphries Rebellion is brought to you by DerMend Mature Skin Solutions. That's right, moisturizing anti-itch lotion. It is targeted care to relieve your dry, itchy, mature skin with Promoxine HCI. I don't know what that is. I don't even know what it means. I do know it's steroid-free, and what I do know is it relieves your itch and irritation, and it is specially formulated for seasoned citizens. It's available at Walmart and Walgreens and CVS. It doesn't smell. It's fragrance-free. Fortified with hydrogenated coconut oil. Again, hydrogenated, don't know what it means. With coconut oil, I know that that's good. And paraben-free, that's good too. So, DerMend. DerMend.com. Got a lot of great products too. So, go check them out. They're great people, great sponsors. And I hope you'll support them. All right? Ready to get on with the show? By the way, if you want to comment on the program, you can always email me, rusty@rustylive.com. That's my direct email. Or you can go on my Facebook page, you can comment, or you can go on my website, rustylive.com, and there's a place where you can actually leave a voicemail, and I'll listen to it, and maybe I'll put it on the show. All right? So, a little intro music. You're getting the behind the scenes. You get a little bonus because you're the podcast guys. I love the podcast guys. So, let's start the big show. Here we go. We are going to go live in a matter of moments. And when we do, please check in. I want to see who you are and where you're deplorable from. And if you would share the video and be a participant, that would be awesome. A lot going on today. Trump knocked it out of the park. We'll get into that. I mean, he put the UN on notice. The world's paying attention. Also, hey, Comey's a liar. What a shock. There was wiretapping. Yeah, we knew that. I mean, is it a surprise? No, it's not. Again, these swamp people in D.C., man, am I sick of them. All right, let's get the show started. Here we go.
Yeah, we don't want to do anything to scare your children. That's the last thing we want to do. That's a direct order. Do it now.
He's been put down, ripped off, cut open. Now, he's unleashed. The American insurgency starts now. This is Rusty Humphries, Rebellion Radio.
Well, hello, my brother from another mother. How you doing, my sister from another mister? How are you? Welcome. It is the Rusty Humphries Rebellion. I'm Rusty Humphries. Thanks for being here. We are brought to you by and powered by our good friends at Right Wing News. Let us acknowledge them the proper way that they deserve. Thank you very much, Right Wing News. We are here with them every night, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West. You can also find me on my podcast, The Rusty Humphries Rebellion, and my Facebook page, Talk to Rusty, and you just type in my name, and you can find me on Facebook and look for me in a blue shirt. Today's show is sponsored by our good friends at DerMend. DerMend. Mature Skin Solutions, and it is dermatologist recommended. It is specially formulated for itchy, mature skin. If you're a seasoned citizen, this is a great product for you. It has moisturizers, skin conditioning agents, and it relieves the itch and irritation, and it works. It works. You can find it at DerMend.com or go to Walmart, CVS Pharmacy, any great place like that, and you will be very, very glad that you did. All right, let's do some checking in first before we get into the show. Again, Trump knocked it out of the park at the UN. We're going to play some of that. Comey's a liar. No shock there. And somebody sent me a video. I'm not positive, but I think it might be Kim Jung Un singing Rocket Man. I may be wrong, but we're going to get into that in just a second. Let's see. We got a lot of deplorables checking in. Daniel, hi. Anna, hello. Mike is in New York. Daniel says, this is my first time seeing it. Proud voter for Trump here. Thank you, Daniel. Hope you'll hang out, enjoy the show, and hang with us. Appreciate it. Michael, hello. Thomas in Texas. Joe is in Tulsa. Anna is in Vancouver, BC. Hey, Anna. Ramona says, good news, the real truth. Yes, that's what we do every night. I don't care about the spin on either side. I just want to get at the truth. And we do this every night, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West. Love for you to be a part of it. And that's it. Pam is checking in from PA. Anna is a deplorable from Town and Country, Tampa. Hi, hon, she says. Reese, sup, Rusty? Pamela, different Pam. Hi, Rusty. Pam from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, checking in. Hello. Michael, hear about the earthquake in Mexico? I told you, this is Revelations unfolding. Well, Michael, yeah, I did hear about it. Matter of fact, a friend of mine sent me a video. Why is it not kicking in? Oh, don't do that to me. Don't do that to me. A friend of mine sent me a video of a friend of his in Mexico City, and it's pretty freaky. Let's this isn't something you saw on Fox or anything else. This is something from today from a friend. Let me share it with you from Mexico City earlier today. Look at the devastation. Look at all the buildings falling apart.
Mírame la cantidad de edificios que se cayeron. No lo puedo creer. No, impresionante. Pues yo vi uno cayéndose aquí, güey, ahí al ladito. No puede ser.
Hey. Yeah, you don't want to see that happen to anybody. So our prayers are with the folks in Mexico City, and we wish them nothing but the best. And again, thank you very much for watching and for pointing things out. A lot of people checking in from all over the world, all over the country, and we really appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast right now at iTunes or Stitcher or iHeartRadio or any place you can get a great podcast, you can always email me, Rusty at rustylive.com. And checking in, hey, Rusty, Lisa is from Phoenix, Arizona. Me too, Lisa. Martin is a deplorable checking in from Philippines. Richard is from Milwaukee. John is California March, ARB, Riverside. Hey, John. Michael says, God bless you, Rusty. Thank you. Myrna says, hey, Rusty, got your notice. Thank you for explaining what a podcast was. You're welcome, Myrna. We did that yesterday, and you know what? I probably should do it more often so we get more people involved. Let's see. Ray is from Milwaukee. Kim is a deplorable from Tennessee, and Joe is a deplorable from Ohio. Mike says, we need to arrest Obama, Rice, and Comey. There's another thing that's never going to happen. I agree with you. Yeah, what I don't understand is how you can commit these kind of crimes and nobody does nothing. Nothing. And it's not just Hillary. I mean, how can you spy on a candidate from another party? I mean, Nixon did it a little bit, and man, you would have thought the end of the world happened with Watergate. This is way, 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 way worse, and nobody's saying nothing, and everybody's lying about it, and it seems to be okay. I don't get it. I don't get it. I don't get it. Michael's in Bakersfield, California. I used to live in Bakersfield. I love that place. Gordon live in Dallas-Fort Worth. I used to live in Dallas-Fort Worth. Jason, hello from Kennesaw in Georgia. I lived there. Atlanta. Bill's from Georgia. Steve Sanchez. Hey, Steve. He says, hey, buddy, glad to see you on. Thank you, Steve. Steve does a great show as well, so thanks for checking in. I appreciate it. Brenda's in Conroe, Texas. Anna, call me pants on fire. Liar, liar. Neener, neener. Kip is a deplorable from Tennessee. Joy is a native Texan deplorable. Lyndon is an acrophobic deplorable. I have no idea what that means. I'm sure it's something smart. Elizabeth is from Melbourne. Louise is from Ontario, Canada. Daniel, man, I hate living in California, he says. Fernando, go friend, action, education, happy, entertainment, global, and respect you, everything. Thank you, I think. Brian's from Cape Coral, Florida. Debbie's in Fayetteville, Alabama. Ethan checking in. Thank you, Ethan. East L.A. L is the El Rito. He was born in East L.A. Money was... Okay, enough. I'll get some more of your check-ins in a little bit. Let's take a look at a little bit of the speech, and then I may play a little bit more of it from the UN. I'm guessing that not a lot of people got a chance to see the thing because, well, you have... What's the word? You have... you have a job. So you don't get a chance to watch all this stuff, which is completely understandable. But first, LifeZet is a great website. Laura Ingram is a part of that. And they did a great video comparing Obama's apologetic tone in the past with Trump's tone today. And let's take a look at that here on the Rusty Humphries Rebellion.
I took office at a time when many around the world had come to view America with skepticism and distrust.
The United States of America has been among the greatest forces for good in the history of the world.
Part of this was due to misperceptions and misinformation about my country.
We are renewing our commitment to the first duty of every government, the duty of our citizens.
Part of this was due to opposition to specific policies and a belief that on certain critical issues, America had acted unilaterally, without regard for the interests of others.
American prosperity was forgotten and left behind, but they are forgotten no more, and they will never be forgotten again.
Now, like all of you, my responsibility is to act in the interests of my nation and my people, and I will never apologize for defending those interests. But
as President of the United States, I will always put America first. In America, we do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example for everyone to watch.
For those who question the character and cause of my nation, I ask you to look at the concrete actions we have taken in just 9 months.
From its very first moments, the American story is the story of what is possible.
And that is why the days when America dragged its feet on this issue are over.
God bless the United States of America. Thank you very much.
Okay, they're clapping. Everybody's clapping. LifeZet, thank you very much. Great job. Okay, so big difference between the two speeches. And like I said, I'm going to play a little bit more, actually a lot more of what President Trump had to say. But it's so hysterical. Hysterical. The way the left is just going crazy, going nuts, crazy on what Trump had to say. I mean, I was going to say it's shocking, but it's not. Listen to Terry Moron from ABC and his description of Trump's speech. I'd like to know what you thought of it. Do you think Trump hit it out of the park? I think it was one of the great American presidential speeches, certainly to the UN. I don't know if maybe ever. What did you think of it? Go ahead and let me know here. Let folks know. Make a comment here on Facebook. Give me some hearts, some thumbs ups. If you didn't like it, get some ads. But we want that engagement. We want people to know, Facebook to know, the internet to know that this is a place where you can actually participate. I care what it is you think. Jason thinks he hit it out of the park. Let's see. Pamela think. Let's see here. Melinda thinks they all lie. Pamela thinks, well, Obama's a Muslim. Hilton says, I'm not your people, Barry. Jason says he hit it out of the park. Jim Clark says, Memphis, Tennessee, daddy. Woo, Monday night, baby. Mid-South Coliseum, daddy. Thank you, Jim. Philip says, thank you, Mr. President. Sherry says, I wanted all the most corrupt tried and imprisoned and some executed. I may have to settle to see my country saved from being destroyed. Good. Okay. As your comments are coming in, I want to share with you a little bit of what ABC had to say and Terry Moron right after the speech. They just never, ever stop.
Of the agreement. But, George, I want to go back again just quickly to that North Korea statement. People do understand that there is a military option. The United States could destroy North Korea, but not without a great loss of life in South Korea and possibly to U.S. forces as well. This is a very big threat.
And I want to follow that up with Terry Moran as well, because, Terry, if you read the president's words, he said the conditions for totally destroying North Korea would be a force to defend ourselves and our allies. You could read that possibly to even open up a justification for preventive war against North Korea.
That is a potential justification, but the words totally destroying a nation of 25 million people, that borders on the threat of committing a war crime.
And that is going to be the last word for us right now. Extraordinary speech from President Donald Trump.
It's a war crime. And you see how smug, if you listen to the podcast, just as smug as he can be, a red bastard Terry Moron. Now, like I said, I'm going to try to play more of the speech. Somebody sent me this, and I could be wrong. I'm not positive. And you're going to have to tell me, is this Kim Jung Un? I'm not positive. Let me play a little bit of video here. Somebody said this could be Kim Jung Un. He's talented. Wave your hands in the air like you just don't care. Long time. And I think it's gonna be a long, long time. Yeah. Oh, it's William Hung. Oh, I'm sorry. I got confused. Somebody sent that to me. You never know on the internet when someone's telling you the truth or not. Jeffrey says firing missiles over Japan was enough. Why aren't we kicking Rocket Man into space? Lisa says, I bet Elton John's career is threatened now with that great talent. Yeah. Now, Ron says, so fake. You're right. That was fake news. Oh, you got me. Oh, my goodness. I put out fake news that Kim Jong-un was singing Rocket Man. Oh, you got me. I'm sorry. Jim says, scroll up. My scrolling is not scrolling. Why? Scroll for me. You could tell the difference. William Hung serves a purpose. Thank you, Jen. Let's see here. Am I looking for something that you said, Jim? Casey says, North Korea is a cancer this world would be better off and better rid of. They teach their children from babies to hate America and South Korea and most of the other countries. Let's see here. Jim says, the world now knows where we stand. They should have always known because of the history of our people. He stands for his country and people like every world leader should. Forgive me, Rusty, but how's that wrong? You're right. All right, so instead of me doing a lot of yapping tonight, I want to play more of the president's speech. I know most people saw a little bit of it. You saw clips. I'm guessing a lot of people didn't see the whole thing because you work and have jobs. So I don't want to have the media spin this for you. I don't want you to hear any untruths. So I'm just going to play a bunch of this. Probably not the whole thing. I mean, it is 40 minutes long, so that's a long time on the internet. So I'm not going to play the whole thing. But I'm going to play a large percentage of it and let you... I'll report, you decide. Remember when Fox News used to do that? I'll report, you decide. President Trump giving a speech, giving an address to the 72nd session of the United Nations here on the Rusty Humphries Rebellion.
It is a profound honor to stand here in my home city as a representative of the American people to address the people of the world. As millions of our citizens continue to suffer the effects of the devastating hurricanes that have struck our country, I want to begin by expressing my appreciation to every leader in this room who has offered assistance and aid. The American people are strong and resilient, and they will emerge from these hardships more determined than ever before. Fortunately, the United States has done very well since Election Day last November 8th. The stock market is at an all-time high, a record. Unemployment is at its lowest level in 16 years, and because of our regulatory and other reforms, we have more people working in the United States today than ever before. Companies are moving back, creating job growth the likes of which our country has not seen in a very long time. And it has just been announced that we will be spending almost $700 billion on our military and defense. Our military will soon be the strongest it has ever been. For more than 70 years, in times of war and peace, the leaders of nations, movements, and religions have stood before this assembly. Like them, I intend to address some of the very serious threats before us today, but also the enormous potential waiting to be unleashed. We live in a time of extraordinary opportunity. Breakthroughs in science, technology, and medicine are curing illnesses and solving problems that prior generations thought impossible to solve. But each day also brings news of growing dangers that threaten everything we cherish and value. Terrorists and extremists have gathered strength and spread to every region of the planet. Rogue regimes represented in this body not only support terrorists, but threaten other nations and their own people with the most destructive weapons known to humanity. Authority and authoritarian powers seek to collapse the values, the systems, and alliances that prevented conflict and tilted the world toward freedom since World War II. International criminal networks traffic drugs, weapons, people, forced dislocation and mass migration, threaten our borders, and new forms of aggression exploit technology to menace our citizens. To put it simply, we meet at a time of both immense promise and great peril. It is entirely up to us whether we lift the world to new heights or let it fall into a valley of disrepair. We have it in our power, should we so choose, to lift millions from poverty, to help our citizens realize their dreams, and to ensure that new generations of children are raised free from violence, hatred, and fear. This institution was founded in the aftermath of 2 world wars to help shape this better future. It was based on the vision that diverse nations could cooperate to protect their sovereignty, preserve their security, and promote their prosperity. It was in the same period, exactly 70 years ago, that the United States developed the Marshall Plan to help restore Europe. Those three beautiful pillars, they're pillars of peace: sovereignty, security, and prosperity. The Marshall Plan was built on the noble idea that the whole world is safer when nations are strong, independent, and free. As President Truman said in his message to Congress at that time, our support of European recovery is in full accord with our support of the United Nations. The success of the United Nations depends upon the independent strength of its members. To overcome the perils of the present and to achieve the promise of the future, we must begin with the wisdom of the past. Our success depends on a coalition of strong and independent nations that embrace their sovereignty to promote security, prosperity, and peace for themselves and for the world. We do not expect diverse countries to share the same cultures, traditions, or even systems of government, but we do expect all nations to uphold these two core sovereign duties: to respect the interests of their own people and the rights of every other sovereign nation. This is the beautiful vision of this institution, and this is the foundation for cooperation and success. Strong sovereign nations let diverse countries with different values, different cultures, and different dreams not just coexist, but work side by side on the basis of mutual respect. Strong sovereign nations let their people take ownership of the future and control their own destiny. And strong sovereign nations allow individuals to flourish in the fullness of the life intended by God. In America, we do not seek to impose our way of life on anyone, but rather to let it shine as an example for everyone to watch. This week gives our country a special reason to take pride in that example. We are celebrating the 230th anniversary of our beloved Constitution, the oldest Constitution still in use in the world today. This timeless document has been the foundation of peace, prosperity, and freedom for the Americans and for countless millions around the globe whose own countries have found inspiration in its respect for human nature, human dignity, and the rule of law. The greatest in the United States Constitution is its first three beautiful words. They are, "We the people." Generations of Americans have sacrificed to maintain the promise of those words, the promise of our country and of our great history. In America, the people govern, the people rule, and the people are sovereign. I was elected not to take power, but to give power to the American people where it belongs. In foreign affairs, we are renewing this founding principle of sovereignty. Our government's first duty is to its people, to our citizens, to serve their needs, to ensure their safety, to preserve their rights, and to defend their values. As President of the United States, I will always put America first. Just like you, as the leaders of your countries, will always and should always put your countries first. All responsible leaders have an obligation to serve their own citizens and the nation-state remains the best vehicle for elevating the human condition. But making a better life for our people also requires us to work together in close harmony and unity to create a more safe and peaceful future for all people. The United States will forever be a great friend to the world, and especially to its allies. But we can no longer be taken advantage of or enter into a one-sided deal where the United States gets nothing in return. As long as I hold this office, I will defend America's interests above all else. But in fulfilling our obligations to our own nations, we also realize that it's in everyone's interest to seek a future where all nations can be sovereign, prosperous, and secure. America does more than speak for the values expressed in the United Nations Charter. Our citizens have paid the ultimate price to defend our freedom and the freedom of many nations represented in this great hall. America's devotion is measured on the battlefields where our young men and women have fought and sacrificed alongside of our allies. From the beaches of Europe to the deserts of the Middle East to the jungles of Asia. It is an eternal credit to the American character that even after we and our allies emerged victorious from the bloodiest war in history, we did not seek territorial expansion or attempt to oppose and impose our way of life on others. Instead, we helped build institutions such as this one to defend the sovereignty, security, and prosperity for all. For the diverse nations of the world, this is our hope. We want harmony and friendship, not conflict and strife. We are guided by outcomes, not ideology. We have a policy of principled realism rooted in shared goals, interests, and values. That realism forces us to confront a question facing every leader and nation in this room. It is a question we cannot escape or avoid. We will slide down the path of complacency, numb to the challenges, threats, and even wars that we face. Or do we have enough strength and pride to confront those dangers today so that our citizens can enjoy peace and prosperity tomorrow? If we desire to lift up our citizens, if we aspire to the approval of history, then we must fulfill our sovereign duties to the people we faithfully represent. We must protect our nations, their interests, and their futures. We must reject threats to sovereignty from the Ukraine to the South China Sea. We must uphold respect for law, respect for borders, and respect for culture, and the peaceful engagement these allow. And just as the founders of this body intended, we must work together and confront together those who threaten us with chaos, turmoil, and terror. The scourge of our planet today is a small group of rogue regimes that violate every principle on which the United Nations is based. They respect neither their own citizens nor the sovereign rights of their countries. If the righteous many do not confront the wicked few, then evil will triumph. When decent people and nations become bystanders to history, the forces of destruction only gather power and strength. No one has shown more contempt for other nations and for the well-being of their own people than the depraved regime in North Korea. It is responsible for the starvation deaths of millions of North Koreans. and for the imprisonment, torture, killing, and oppression of countless more. We were all witness to the regime's deadly abuse when an innocent American college student, Otto Warmbier, was returned to America only to die a few days later. We saw it in the assassination of the dictator's brother using banned nerve agents in an international airport. We know it kidnapped a sweet 13-year-old Japanese girl from a beach in her own country to enslave her as a language tutor for North Korea's spies. If this is not twisted enough, now North Korea's reckless pursuit of nuclear weapons and ballistic missiles threatens the entire world with unthinkable loss of human life. It is an outrage that some nations would not only trade with such a regime, but would arm, supply, and financially support a country that imperils the world with nuclear conflict. No nation on earth has an interest in seeing this band of criminals arm itself with nuclear weapons and missiles. The United States has great strength and patience, but if it is forced to defend itself or its allies, we will have no choice but to totally destroy North Korea. Rocket Man is on a suicide mission for himself and for his regime. The United States is ready, willing, and able, but hopefully this will not be necessary. That's what the United Nations is all about. That's what the United Nations is for. Let's see how they do. It is time for North Korea to realize that the denuclearization is its only acceptable future. The United Nations Security Council recently held 2 unanimous 15-0 votes adopting hard-hitting resolutions against North Korea, and I want to thank China and Russia for joining the vote to impose sanctions along with all of the other members of the Security Council. Thank you to all involved. But we must do much more. It is time for all nations to work together to isolate the Kim regime until it ceases its hostile behavior. We face this decision not only in North Korea. It is far past time for the nations of the world to confront another reckless regime, one that speaks openly of mass murder, vowing death to America, destruction to Israel, and ruin for many leaders and nations in this room. The Iranian government masks a corrupt dictatorship behind the false guise of a democracy. It has turned a wealthy country with a rich history and culture into an economically depleted rogue state whose chief exports are violence, bloodshed, and chaos. The longest suffering victims of Iran's leaders are, in fact, its own people. Rather than use its resources to improve Iranian lives, its oil profits go to fund Hezbollah and other terrorists that kill innocent Muslims and attack their peaceful Arab and Israeli neighbors. This wealth, which rightly belongs to Iran's people, also goes to shore up Bashar al-Assad's dictatorship, fuel Yemen's civil war, and undermine peace throughout the entire Middle East. We cannot let a murderous regime continue these destabilizing activities while building dangerous missiles, and we cannot abide by an agreement if it provides cover for the eventual construction of a nuclear program. The Iran deal was one of the worst and most one-sided transactions the United States has ever entered into. Frankly, that deal is an embarrassment to the United States, and I don't think you've heard the last of it, believe me. It is time for the entire world to join us in demanding that Iran's government end its pursuit of death and destruction. It is time for the regime to free all Americans and citizens of other nations that they have unjustly detained. And above all, Iran's government must stop supporting terrorists, begin serving its own people, and respect the sovereign rights of its neighbors. The entire world understands that the good people of Iran want change. And other than the vast military power of the United States, that Iran's people are what their leaders fear the most. This is what causes the regime to restrict internet access, tear down satellite dishes, shoot unarmed student protesters, and imprison political reformers. Oppressive regimes cannot endure forever, and the day will come when the people will face a choice. Will they continue down the path of poverty, bloodshed, and terror, or will the Iranian people return to the nation's proud roots as a center of civilization, culture, and wealth, where their people can be happy and prosperous once again? The Iranian regime's support for terror is in stark contrast to the recent commitments of many of its neighbors to fight terrorism and halt its financing. In Saudi Arabia early last year, I was greatly honored to address the leaders of more than 50 Arab and Muslim nations. We agreed that all responsible nations must work together to confront terrorists and the Islamic extremism that inspires them. We will stop radical Islamic terrorism because we cannot allow it to tear up our nation and indeed to tear up the entire world. We must deny the terrorists safe haven, transit, funding, and any form of support for their vile and sinister ideology. We must drive them out of our nations. It is time to expose and hold responsible those countries who support and finance terror groups like Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, the Taliban, and others that slaughter innocent people. The United States and our allies are working together throughout the Middle East to crush the loser terrorists and stop the reemergence of safe havens they use to launch attacks on all of our people. Last month, I announced a new strategy for victory in the fight against this evil in Afghanistan. From now on, our security interests will dictate the length and scope of military operations, not arbitrary benchmarks and timetables set up by politicians. I have also totally changed the rules of engagement in our fight against the Taliban and other terrorist groups. In Syria and Iraq, we have made big gains toward lasting defeat of ISIS. In fact, our country has achieved more against ISIS in the last 8 months than it has in many, many years combined. We seek the de-escalation of the Syrian conflict and a political solution that honors the will of the Syrian people. The actions of the criminal regime of Bashar al-Assad, including the use of chemical weapons against his own citizens, even innocent children, shock the conscience of every decent person. No society can be safe if banned chemical weapons are allowed to spread. That is why the United States carried out a missile strike on the airbase that launched the attack. We appreciate the efforts of the United Nations agencies that are providing vital humanitarian assistance in areas liberated from ISIS. And we especially thank Jordan, Turkey, and Lebanon for their role in hosting refugees from the Syrian conflict. The United States is a compassionate nation and has spent billions and billions of dollars in helping to support this effort. We seek an approach to refugee resettlement that is designed to help these horribly treated people and which enables their eventual return to their home countries to be part of the rebuilding process. For the cost of resettling one refugee in the United States, we can assist more than 10 in their home region. Out of the goodness of our hearts, we offer financial assistance to hosting countries in the region, and we support recent agreements of the G20 nations that will seek to host refugees as close to their home countries as possible. This is the safe, responsible, and humanitarian approach. For decades, the United States has dealt with migration challenges here in the Western Hemisphere. We have learned that over the long term, uncontrolled migration is deeply unfair to both the sending and the receiving countries. For the sending countries, it reduces domestic pressure to pursue needed political and economic reform and drains them of the human capital necessary to motivate and implement those reforms. For the receiving countries, the substantial costs of uncontrolled migration are borne overwhelmingly by low-income citizens whose concerns are often ignored by both media and government. I want to salute the work of the United Nations in seeking to address the problems that cause people to flee from their homes. The United Nations and African Union led peacekeeping missions to have invaluable contributions in stabilizing conflicts in Africa. The United States continues to lead the world in humanitarian assistance, including famine prevention and relief in South Sudan, Somalia, and northern Nigeria and Yemen. We have invested in better health and opportunity all over the world through programs like PEPFAR, which funds AIDS relief, the President's Malaria Initiative, the Global Health Security Agenda, the Global Fund to End Modern Slavery, and the Woman Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, part of our commitment to empowering women all across the globe. We also thank the Secretary General for recognizing that the United Nations must reform if it is to be an effective partner in confronting threats to sovereignty, security, and prosperity. Too often, the focus of this organization has not been on results, but on bureaucracy and process. In some cases, states that seek to subvert this institution's noble aims have hijacked the very systems that are supposed to advance them. For example, it is a massive source of embarrassment to the United Nations that some governments with egregious human rights records sit on the UN Human Rights Council. The United States is one out of 193 countries in the United Nations, and yet we pay 22% of the entire budget and more. In fact, we pay far more than anybody realizes. The United States bears an unfair cost burden, but to be fair, if it could actually accomplish all of its stated goals, especially the goal of peace, this investment would easily be well worth it. Major portions of the world are in conflict, and some, in fact, are going to hell. But the powerful people in this room, under the guidance and auspices of the United Nations, can solve many of these vicious and complex problems. The American people hope that one day soon the United Nations can be a much more accountable and effective advocate for human dignity and freedom around the world. In the meantime, we believe that no nation should have to bear a disproportionate share of the burden, militarily or financially. Nations of the world must take a greater role in promoting secure and prosperous societies in their own regions. That is why in the Western Hemisphere, the United States has stood against the corrupt, destabilizing regime in Cuba and embraced the enduring dream of the Cuban people to live in freedom. My administration recently announced that we will not lift sanctions on the Cuban government until it makes fundamental reforms. We have also imposed tough, calibrated sanctions on the socialist Maduro regime in Venezuela, which has brought a once thriving nation to the brink of total collapse. The socialist dictatorship of Nicolas Maduro has inflicted terrible pain and suffering on the good people of that country. This corrupt regime destroyed a prosperous nation by imposing a failed ideology that has produced poverty and misery everywhere it has been tried. To make matters worse, Maduro has defied his own people, stealing power from their elected representatives to preserve his disastrous rule. The Venezuelan people are starving, and their country is collapsing. Their democratic institutions are being destroyed. This situation is completely unacceptable, and we cannot stand by and watch. As a responsible neighbor and friend, we and all others have a goal. That goal is to help them regain their freedom, recover their country, and restore their democracy. I would like to thank leaders in this room for condemning the regime and providing vital support to the Venezuelan people. The United States has taken important steps to hold the regime accountable. We are prepared to take further action if the government of Venezuela persists on its path to impose authoritarian rule on the Venezuelan people. We are fortunate to have incredibly strong and healthy trade relationships with many of the Latin American countries gathered here today. Our economic bond forms a critical foundation for advancing peace and prosperity for all of our people and all of our neighbors. I ask every country represented here today to be prepared to do more to address this very real crisis. We call for the full restoration of democracy and political freedoms in Venezuela. The problem in Venezuela is not that socialism has been poorly implemented, but that socialism has been faithfully implemented.
Oh, listen to the crowd there. Okay, you know what? At this point, there's about 10 more minutes of the broadcast and of the speech, and you can watch it. Actually, 9 minutes and 7 seconds. If you want to go and find it online, you can. I'm just running out of time here. And what'd you think? I want to know what you thought. Do you think President Trump did a great speech? Are you proud of him as a leader? I heard that one of the leaders of Venezuela said, "Yeah, I haven't heard anything that bad since Ronald Reagan." Oh, that really taught us a lesson. John says, this is the President of the United States, the leader of the free world we've been so sorely missing for the last 8 years, speaking bold truth to the world like no other. Anthony says, drain the swamp, term limits for Congress. Jason said that Venezuela statement is juicy. Taylor says, destroy America. I know a few of your world leaders are reading my comments. I don't get that one. Taylor, sorry. Glenn says, I'm checking in, Rusty, from Phoenix City, Alabama. Nice to hear a real president speak. Joseph says, this is definitely the president that loves his country more than any other. Joe says, I'm proud of the people's president. Rollo says, it's about time someone actually tells the truth to the UN. Michael says, I loved it. Earlier, Dennis wrote, as a veteran deployed 5 times to Afghanistan and Iraq, I've seen the worst of the worst. I've been shot at, seen my friends killed, mangled, and died in front of me. I've killed my fair share of Islamic Muslims. And this is why I enlisted, and my fellow soldiers did, to fight for freedom and stop tyranny. Thank you for your service to your country, Dennis. We do appreciate it. We really, really do. Cheryl says, yeah, the California governor admits to illegal immigrants have false driver's licenses and fake security cards. Wow. Just wow. Yeah. Yeah. You know, you got to wonder, when is it going to stop? You know, when is the stupidity in our country going to stop? The self-destructive, suicidal nature of people on the left, I just don't understand it. Joe says, I have not seen a leader this strong since Reagan. Thomas says, I love seeing how much support our president has. Benjamin says, ducks are fun. Donna says, love your show, Rusty, watching from Georgia. Thank you. Lisa Clark, again, thank you, Dennis, for your service to the country. And Amy says, finally, a U.S. president with a spine. My friends, it is an honor to have you in the audience. It is. And it is an honor to have great sponsors of this program, and I hope that you will find them and use them. If you have ear wax like I do, and it's embarrassing to talk about, but hey, some of us get it. And if you have ear wax and you're looking for a same ear washer purchased by doctors and clinics, you want Wax RX. It is pH conditioned ear wash system. It actually works. And you can clean your ears at home with a system like the doctors use. See all the stuff that comes in it? Very simple. Just go to waxrx.com and you can find it. Also, our good friends at Australian Dream Arthritis Pain Relief Cream and Back Pain Relief Cream. It's great stuff. Doesn't burn, doesn't smell. It's not greasy. You rub it where it's supposed to, and gosh, it just works. What more do you want? I wouldn't ask for anything else because I just want, I just want the pain to go away. Same thing if I got itchy, dry skin and I'm a seasoned citizen. That's why I suggest you use DerMend products. DerMend Moisturizing Anti-Itch Lotion is specially formulated for itchy, mature skin with moisturizers and skin conditioning agents and Pramoxine HCI. It relieves that itch and irritation. It's available at Walmart, Walgreens, CVS, and other great retailers, or you can find them online at DerMend.com. That's it, my friend. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m. in the East, 6 p.m. in the West. May God bless you. May God bless America. My name is Rusty Humphries. Don't forget to check out the podcast, The Rusty Humphries Rebellion. Find that at iTunes, Stitcher, and other great places. See you tomorrow. May God bless you. May God bless America. I'm Rusty Humphries, and this is The Rusty Humphries Rebellion.